Welcome once again to the Old Cow Report, and of course, my pyrotechnical engineer, Roy Rogers Hoff, is coming in, cutting it under the wire, and playing with everything in there. And so once again, we slipped a little bit here at the beginning. We're back on the air now, live, coming to you from the beautiful downtown tire factory and horseshoe parlor. And our chief horseshoer and winner of the 1997 horseshoeing contest for the Greater Silesia and Upper and Lower Bosnia, Fred the True Stafford. Welcome to the program, Fred.
Yeah, thank you, but I'm not the champion.
Well, who won then this year?
I don't know.
Okay, all right. Well, that's what I heard anyway. So we're glad to see you can make it again, Fred. And
yes.
So everything go out there?
Good.
Okay, and you got your mic on there.
Yes.
We have to double check everything around here. I think we're on the air, so, and of course tonight our number is 839-5067 if you'd like to call in. And of course Roy's right on the ball with that, and we're trying to clean up all that writing we have on the screen there, because it does get a little bit confusing when there's too much. We're going to put it down to just the call-in phone number and the homepage address there, in case anybody wants to email or go to the Cow Report and Loyal Order of the Raccoons homepage. The email address and everything's right on that homepage on the internet, World Wide Web, and you'll be able to browse around one of the best homepages on the internet, bar none, as they say at the Horseshoe Pit. And of course, how long have you been refereeing horseshoe matches now?
I haven't refereed the first one yet.
Okay, well, I don't know how you can keep winning year after year without even being the referee. Somebody had to referee it. All right, Fred, well, it's almost November. It's turning a little cold out there.
Yes.
Have you got your car winterized yet?
Mike, I don't have a car anymore.
Oh, yeah, I heard somebody sold it. So you're on foot now, and you're taking a lot of walks, too, to stay in shape, right?
Yes.
How far do you think you walked today?
Well, I walked to Ron's from my house, and that must be a mile or two, a couple of miles.
One way?
No, both ways.
Well, that's a pretty good walk. Pretty good walk there, Fred. Well, there's some hot news out there, Fred, and of course we are going to be taking calls tonight as soon as we get the old telephone warmed there and ready to go. But there's some new news out, Fred, about the Oklahoma City bomb blast.
Yeah.
Of course, you and I have been reading about that ever since the day it happened, that there was something rotten in Denmark, something fishy down by the pier.
Yeah.
Well, now some of the major news commentators in the country, Robert Novak, writing in the Chicago Sun-Times. Of course, he's also on Turner Network News, CNN. He has, he once in a while he's on Crossfire and some other shows on there, and he has, I think him and another guy have a show on Saturdays, but he writes columns for a lot of the major newspapers. And he's saying now that there's a new book claimed sweeping cover-up in the Oklahoma City blast.
Yes.
As Terry Nichols is tried for the Oklahoma City bombing, grave and disturbing questions are being raised in a new book by British journalist Ambrose Evans Pritchard. He describes a cover-up that protects alleged collaborators of Nichols and Timothy McVeigh in America's worst terrorist act ever. Evans Pritchard presents documentation including an April 21, 1995 memo that he calls the smoking gun of the Oklahoma bombing. Written 2 days after the tragedy, it reports an FBI debriefing of Carol Howe, a Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms volunteer undercover agent at Elohim City, a neo-Nazi paramilitary base in eastern Oklahoma. She told the FBI of conversations with 2 activists there who were closely associated with McVeigh. Andreas Strassmeyer, a former West German Army lieutenant illegally in the United States, and Dennis Mahon, a former Imperial Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. Reporting the interview was Howe, the memo says Strassmeyer frequently talked about direct action against the U.S. federal government. The information about Mahon is even more precise. He has talked with Carroll about targeting federal installations for destruction through bombing, such as the IRS building, the Tulsa Federal building, and the Oklahoma City building. The same document reports 3 pre-bombing visits to Oklahoma City by Strassmeyer and Mahan, accompanied by Howe on one occasion. This information was supplied by Howe before the disaster to her ATF contacts. So in other words, she told her ATF contacts about this before it blew up, Fred, that they were looking at blowing up that precise building. Agent Angela Finley, who on November 29, 1994, warned of bombings after a debriefing of the undercover operative. Whether or not this meant the government was alerted to the horror to come, what is unfathomable is that the Elohim City extremists were ignored after April 19, 1995. And of course, while the FBI was conducting over 20,000 interviews around Oklahoma, these people have still traveled freely. Fred McMahon, or is it Strassmeyer?
Strassmeyer, I think, left the country.
And Mahan are both still traveling around freely, though.
I thought he left the country.
Yeah, he's back in Germany, I think. Evans Pritchard is certain that Strassmeyer and Mahan are under federal protection, though he is unsure what agency they worked for. He says the ATF was ready to arrest Strassmeyer in February 1995 as an illegal alien violating weapons statutes based on Howe's secret reports when the U.S. Attorney's Office intervened. And of course, as you remember, Fred, back in 1993 and first few months of the Clinton administration, Janet Reno had every United States attorney in the country fired and replaced with Democratic U.S. attorneys. And so that's all under the control of Democrats now, and in some cases socialists and communists. And so the U.S. Attorney's Office in this case intervened and stopped any arrest of this Strassmeyer, even though he was an illegal alien. The jacket blurb of The Secret Life of Bill Clinton, the unreported stories, claims that Evans Pritchard exposes the bombings as a government sting that flew out of control. In fact, he has not pinned that down, though he quotes Strassmeyer musing about a sting to entrap McVeigh. So this could very well be a sting that went out of control, Fred.
Yes.
A federal government sting, and it spun out of control, and he lost contact with McVeigh, and he went ahead with the plans that they helped him plan. And he put those plans into force. So there you have it, Fred. That's coming from the mainline press, and of course there is Terry Nichols is still on trial in Colorado, and there's some grand jury hearings going on in Oklahoma themselves because they don't trust the federal government's conclusions on that case. So the state of Oklahoma is having their own grand jury investigations into what really happened in Oklahoma City on that fateful day when all those people were killed. Okay, Fred, we're going to take the cow phone finger and turn on the cow phone and see who's on the other end of the line. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yes, Chuck, I must admit, it's been a while since I've seen your show. You got a really nice setup going out there.
Thanks a lot. We've, as you can see, we've been out in the garden this summer, and
Yeah.
we've grown some nice tobacco crop here, and we'll be getting ready to harvest that and send it off to Clinton and Gore's tobacco processing plant down there in Tennessee. And
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
and then, of course, you know, it goes from there to Cuba because they supply Cuba with his tobacco for Castro for his Cuban cigars, and then those are imported into Canada.
The Cuban trade embargo.
And then they're smuggled from Canada back into the United States, and so we can smoke Cuban cigars here in town.
That's right. You should send them some of that Flavin Pop. I was drinking some of that the other day, and all of a sudden I started seeing, like, the Cow Report merchandise floating all over on the screen. I seen you, Chuck, and you were talking to me, and you're telling me about the library expansion plan and how bad it is, and I'm like, yes, I know. And the bubbles from the Flavin Pop, they just made me see different ways.
Different ways.
Yes, I can see the library expansion plan is bad now, and Rush Limbaugh is good. I mean, the Flavin has opened up my mind into the Cow Report status. You know what I'm talking about, Chuck?
Well, I'm glad you guys are buying that and drinking out there, because Fred claims that you can't buy it anywhere.
Oh, I've seen it at the finest stores.
Yeah.
I always don't give their names, but they're the finest stores. Like, Fred, I seen you walking down the street. You've been taking your walks. you're looking rather healthy by drinking that Flavin Pop and big smiles, isn't that right? I got big smiles drinking that Flavin Pop. Oh, I mean, I'm saucing up the Flavin Pop right now, and I just kind of go a little bit crazy sometimes.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another fine testimonial to the healing ingredients in Flavin Pop. And we don't know what the ingredients are because Flavin Pop has kept those a closely guarded secret ever since the formula was brought over from the old country, Fred, and smuggled into the United States. And they've been making Flavin Pop here in Eau Claire ever since.
Yeah.
And of course, you can only get this at one place.
Where?
And that's down at the corner.
And that place is not in business anymore.
Corner of Menominee Street and Ferry. And of course, if you don't want to drink it, you can put it in your mix it with your oil. It helps you get better gas mileage, or you can pour it directly into the gas, right in there with the gas whenever you have a refill. And of course, it works just fine there too to increase your gas mileage and to keep the metal parts from rubbing together. Of course, Fred, you know they sell out quite frequently, especially in the wintertime when there's a lot of flu.
Who sells
When there's a lot of flu out there and people start dying, the funeral homes.
Yeah.
The funeral homes buy that for when they run out of formaldehyde. They use Flavin Pop, and of course that was discovered many, many years ago.
Yeah. You want to?
All right, Fred. What have you got there?
Well, I got here UN grab, and this is in the Wanderer, a St. Paul paper, 201 Ohio Street, and this is a UN grab for global power by Pat Buchanan. The United States agreed to pay the United Nations $819 million in back dues. A new snootiness is visible in the world today.
Snootiness?
Well, yeah.
What do you mean by that?
For a while, it was a general fair up at the United Nations. There's all the paid bureaucrats, diplomats that have to go back to their respective countries and find real work. Unfortunately, this fear has been lifted. They are again behaving as the mandarins in the New World Order, the priestly class of the New World Government.
So what does that mean in layman's terms?
Well, we're paying $819 million. We shouldn't be paying to the UN.
What are they doing with that?
Going to do all kinds of things.
I know they used to funnel it to a lot of different communist insurgencies in other countries around the world.
Right.
In the form of supposedly humanitarian aid, but of course, when you free up the money in this hand by putting money in this hand buys machine guns, while this hand takes the money from the United Nations and does the humanitarian things that frees up all those millions to buy the guns with.
Yeah.
So that the communist insurgencies get stronger.
Yes.
All right, well, Roy Rogers Hoff, and of course, if you read the homepage, you'll know that he's related to Hopalong Cassidy on his pet iguana side of the family. Says that there's another call on line 13, so we'll take the old cow finger and we'll punch it in. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yes, I enjoy your show very much, but since when did you start turning Republicans or Democrats?
Doing what to them?
Turning Republican.
Who did?
You the stuff you've got written up there. I just happened to scan back and got on there tonight. And I see you got all impeach Clinton and stuff. Since when is Gingrich and them showing her pictures? That must be paid for by the Republicans.
Yeah, this is one of them Republican front programs.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Right.
Well, I guess that was what you call commentary, Fred. Well, here we go. You know, I work with a guy named Blaine, and you know, when those tapes, all of a sudden they discovered all them tapes in
Yes.
Clinton's White House there. I said to him, Blaine, I said, you know, Blaine, they probably have the finest editorial and editing staff in the world right now editing those tapes to make sure that they splice them correctly and make new copies so that it won't be able to be detected. Well, I said that to Blaine about 2 weeks ago. Well, October 20th, Monday, 1:03 p.m. The Justice Department says it always closely examines videotapes when they are evidence in an investigation. but otherwise has no comment on allegations from Representative Dan Burton. The Indiana Republican, who is sharing hearings on alleged fundraising improprieties by Democrats, claimed in a television interview Sunday that some of the tapes showing President Clinton and his guests appeared to be cut off intentionally or altered in some way. Chief Justice Department spokesman Burt Brandenburg said today, "Whenever federal prosecutors deal with videotape evidence, there's always a possibility that the production of the videotape could become an issue. The Justice Department is certainly ready to pursue that if necessary." Now, about a quarter of a century ago, President Nixon tried to alter some audio tapes and make it appear like there was nothing wrong with them. And then he finally released them. Well, here, quarter of a century later, the Democratic President Clinton is trying to do the same thing, trying to alter the content. And I've been in editing now for, Fred, since the middle of 1980s, editing videos and stuff, and and you can make things appear as if they are true when they're not by editing two separate things together, or taking the same event and just editing parts out that look like they're outtakes, or especially if you're filming a program or something and you got a bad spot in there you want to remove, you just edit it out. Well, they've had months and months and months and months and months to do some very serious professional editing, Fred.
I know it.
And this could be the unraveling of the whole situation, and this could be what brings down the tobacco farmers from Arkansas and Tennessee. All right, Freddie boy. Well, you know,
Yes.
I thought we'd put that school board, that school referendum to bed, and that was behind us. But something interesting came out in the paper last week, which got me to thinking, and the first thing I thought about is, does the Leader Telegram have what's called an investigative reporter? Do you think they do, Fred? Do they have any reporters that actually investigate and try and
I don't think so.
try and get down to the bottom of something, whether it's true or not? Well, I seem to feel the same way, Fred. I don't think so either. I don't think they have a investigative reporter that can actually get to the bottom of something. And so when we take this call, I'm going to look for that while we're listening to this first call here, because I have something very serious to talk about here for a minute about that school referendum that took place here a couple of weeks ago. And I'm talking about very serious. And I'm talking about possible cover-up and, according to my thinking, possible withholding of very pertinent information, Fred, that would have tipped the scales of the election. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, my name's Joel from Augusta. Oh, by the way, how's it going, Chuck?
All right, you guys get us all the way down in Augusta?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was wondering, my wife ain't giving it to me, really, if you know about that, Fred. But I was just wondering, can you get any type of disease from a cow?
Disease?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get the mad cow disease from eating the contaminated meat. And, of course, if you have a computer, you can go to my homepage. The address is on the bottom of the screen there, and you can read all about mad cow disease and how now it's even spread into squirrels.
Well, what I was wondering, not by eating it, but, sexually, can you get it?
I don't know, Fred. You've been around animals your whole life. What do you think about that?
I don't know.
Okay, Freddie, here's what I'm getting at here. All right. I used to work as a truant officer / attendance counselor in a regional school office that covered 8 or 9 counties. And one of the things that the principals and the superintendents of those different districts wanted to know was, and they wanted to know it the first week of school, how many students do we have?
Yes.
And you know why they wanted to know, Freddie boy? Because they got paid from the state per head. And they also had federal programs where they got money
Yes.
for different things. Well, you know on the first week and within the first 10 days, 20 days, you know exactly, well, you know the first day how many's there, but you kind of wait because there's people still moving in and other people moving
Yeah.
out. And so you wait a couple weeks. And then you decide, well, here's what our enrollment's going to be. Now, as far as I know, schools in the Eau Claire area start in August. So give them 3 weeks on the outside. That would put you into the middle of September. We had an election to decide the fate of a referendum for an amount of
$39 million.
39, almost 40 million bucks, Freddie. Almost 40 million bucks. And of course, some of the scare tactics out there were that we had to build new schools. We were going to be overrun with students, and the brainwashing, and we talked about the front groups about this piece of propaganda, and about how the Leader-Telegram wrote not one but 2 editorials from their fine editorial staff pushing this thing, and then they kind of backpedaled after it got beat up real bad. They kind of backpedaled off and attacked the superintendent. But so the propaganda was out there. Thousands upon thousands of dollars were spent to push this thing down our throats. But there's one little thing that the school board, the Eau Claire School District Administration failed to tell the voters. And to my way of thinking, and personally, I feel that they did this deliberately. They withheld enrollment information stating that there was a drastic drop in enrollment. Remember when we had the Barry on here and we talked about how they were trying to build into a declining enrollment, and that was with the figures looking at that they'd given. That was with school administrative records showing that their own records said that yes, there is going to be a decline. Well, in the October 15th, 1997 front page of the Leader-Telegram, headlines say low enrollment forces budget cuts. Low enrollment forces budget cuts. Now, it seems to me, Fred, that we just had a referendum a few days before that. Matter of fact, I think the referendum was on October 4th.
Yes.
And here, 11 days later, the Eau Claire School District has a $365,000 hole in the 97-98 budget because enrollments are much lower than projections. Now, they knew what these enrollments were way before October 15th. Way, way before that, because they have to get those numbers into the state for because they get paid so much per student. Furthermore, the district may face program and staff cuts next year if enrollment continues to decline, school officials said this morning. Enrollment in the district is down 175 students from last year. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I ask you, isn't that about the size of one of these elementary schools? And what did I suggest before the referendum? I said what they need to do is consolidate, Fred.
Yeah.
Into a declining enrollment, you consolidate.
Yeah.
You close the older schools. You do a little bit of maintenance on the newer schools, but you don't fabricate information and puff up statistics to make it look like we have to build into a declining enrollment that they finally admitted to in the Leader-Telegram on October 15th, 1997, conveniently.
Yes.
11 days after the referendum. Now, what would have happened, ladies and gentlemen, if you would have overwhelmingly voted this in and then found out that we have 175 less elementary students, a whole school's worth of students? You'd be a little bit peeved, wouldn't you? But it's kind of, there's not that much worry now because this was defeated. But what if this referendum had been pushed through using these altered and
Yes.
unfair statistics stating that we had to build because of all these needs?
Telephone.
And then the school district itself admits knowing full well that they knew this before the elections. They know how many students, they know exactly how many students are in class. All they do is subtract the number there from their rolls to see how many are absent, and they can count the absentees as being absent, but those are students who are still counted as being attendees in the school district. Okay, so it even says here, enrollment in the district is down 175 students from last year, meaning the district will have to cut $365,000 from its budget. State aid is based on a formula that, among other factors, pays districts for each student enrolled. Now, them students have been enrolled since August, most of them. The more students a district has, the more state aid it receives. Superintendent Lee Hansen said he was shocked at the enrollment drop. We expected a drop of 30 to 40 students this year, but certainly nothing like this. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, I wonder if there's a full moon tonight. You've had a few funny calls.
Yeah.
Actually, I just wanted to call up and ask if you guys are ready for Halloween, because I think you're done up as Chuck and Fred. You kind of look like Chuck and Fred.
Yeah.
Well, we've been doing this for what now, Fred? 20, 25 years?
Oh,
Nothing's changed. We're still doing the show just like we always have.
yes.
I think we're in our 20th or 25th year now. Depends on who's counting. All right, so we need to figure out whether this is a one-year anomaly or if this is the start of a trend. Well, they gave us all these trends when they told us we had to vote for this $40 million boondoggle. They said the trend was we had to build.
We got another call.
Now they're saying we need to figure it out whether this is a one-year anomaly or if this is the start of a trend. Well, you're paying people down there 50, 75, 80, 90,000 plus you, Lee Hansen, you're making over 100 grand a year. And now you're acting like you don't know what's happening in your own school system? You knew since August how many people were enrolled in the school system. That's your job to know, because you get your state aid that's based on a formula per student. And you withheld that information until after the referendum. Now, if there was anyone down at the Leader Telegram that had any guts, they would have pointed that out in this article instead of helping cover it up. Program and staff cuts will not have to be made this year, Hansen said. Instead, the loss of state aid will be made up by borrowing money from sources such as the contingency fund set up for district emergency spending. Well, when you have 175 less students, you lay off teachers, you lay off staff, because you don't need that many teachers then to teach those classes. Somewhere you have to start shrinking. You can't keep expanding and building your socialist base bigger and bigger and bigger and keep having the taxpayers shovel in more money and more money and more money. Once in a while you have to retract. You have to start shrinking a little bit.
Yes.
Consolidating and cutting the fat in the budget and cutting out where you don't need people. You admitted before the referendum that you were going to take people from other parts to do this $9 million computer deal, that you had plenty of staff to do that. So you admitted right there that you had bloated staff. But now your staff is really bloated because you have 175 less students that you have to teach. Okay. Instead, the loss of state aid will be made up by borrowing. But those same budget cuts cannot be made up next year. We're making some cuts this year that we can't make every year, he said, even if we're flat on enrollment. Next year, we still are looking at a similar budget shortfall. If enrollment declines again next year, the school board likely will have to make some program and staff cuts. Brilliant deduction there. I wonder if he went to the Albert Einstein School of Deductive Reasoning. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yes, my call number is 4123. I got my MasterCard ready to order raccoon hat and bow tie.
All right there. We'll get that ready. Of course, Roy takes those orders on the other line. I don't know how that one slipped through. Of course, you can go right to the home page. The address is on the screen there. And if you'd like to call in, 839-6261. What kind of number is that, Fred? I thought it was 5906. We doing changing phone numbers on us in the middle of the stream? Is it 5067 or 839-6261? All right there. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This information was well known by the administration. They have to know it because they have to count heads for state aid reasons, and they have to report those figures to the state. It'd be interesting to find out what kind of statistics the state has down in Madison. Now, the Leader Telegram should hire a investigative reporter. Maybe he can get right on that there. When he gets his nose, when he quits brown nosing over there wherever he's at, the reporter that wrote that article, I mean, those are the basic facts there. Anybody with a pad and paper can just sit in the school board meeting and write out those facts. But once you go behind those facts and ask the tough questions, how long have you known this information? Did you know this information before the $40 million referendum you tried to ram down the overburdened taxpayers' throats? Did you know that information beforehand? And if you did know it, why didn't you give it to the taxpayers ahead of time so that they can reason out their voting strategies? Instead of scaring the hell out of us, thinking that we have to build all these schools because everything is collapsing, and we have, and putting on the front page pictures of kids jammed into a little basketball court there with Ronald McDonald stuffed in there looking like sardines, trying to tell us how many kids you got. Well, you got 175 less than you did last year. That's probably as many kids as you had in that picture. So, to my way of reasoning, you can eliminate one of your elementary schools, and you still got plenty of room to go around. So you guys are going to have to come back with a better set of figures next time, right, Fred?
Yes.
All right, what do you got there, Freddie boy?
GOP flops again on arts endowment. There are two things wrong with the Republican majority in Congress: things they do and things they don't do. Under B, you can file failure to abolish the National Endowment for the Arts, which managed to survive yet another year of Republican revolution a couple of weeks ago.
So for the folks out there that can't read, Fred, what does that mean?
It means that they're going to still have the obscene art. They're going to back it,
Who is?
finance it. The Arts Endowment.
Huh. Yeah, I don't know what their problem is with that deal, Freddie. They keep voting that thing in there. Why don't they just shut that down? Okay, Fred, and here's one final statement on that school board referendum and the antics of the superintendent there. Back in April of 1997, the school district dropped out of the Chamber of Commerce because they said it cost too much and the budget was tight. So over here he's saying, yes, we're really watching our pennies. And over here they're saying, hey, give us $40 million so we can squander it and spread it around big time and waste $9 million of it on computer technology that'll be obsolete in 6 months, and waste $1 million on buying some land from one of their cronies out there and greasing some palms there. There ain't no land around here worth $1 million unless you're going to buy the London Square Mall. Are you there?
Hello?
Hello.
Hey, Chuck.
Go ahead.
Going.
All right.
How come your hat matches your beard? You been kissing coons?
Well, you know, Fred, there once in a while you get some people that, you know, that call must have been from around Fairchild out there in the swamps, Fred. That sounded like a swamp creature there. Okay, Indian reservations battle gangs, rising juvenile crime. Since 1994, the number of active gangs in Indian country have more than doubled, according to a study by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. The study done 3 years ago identified more than 181 active gangs on or near reservations. Data collected this year has led researchers to estimate the number of American Indian gangs has soared to 375. With about 4,650 members living on or near the tribal lands, Fred. So they got a serious problem with gang warfare going on in the on and near the Indian reservations.
Yes.
And I think part of that it has to do with their newfound wealth with casinos and all the money that's being poured into the reservations from gambling and some of their other concessions. Of course, there's always somebody that's going to take advantage of some people that have money, Fred. because you can give 100 people $10,000 apiece and come back a year later, and probably 25 of the people will have consolidated the other 75 people's $10,000, and the other 75 will be poor again. That's just the way it goes, Freddie boy. Okay, for those of you out there that own property, you're going to get a little bit of relief. You're going to get about 84 bucks maybe back. The lottery tax credit is returning this December, offering an average $84 reduction in property taxes, and that's to cover 2 years of profits. So out of all that lottery money that went into this special fund and sat there and drew interest, I mean, I got, see, now on my little small property, Fred, I got over $100 back. Now I'm only going to get $84, and that's to cover 2 years. So we're taking a drastic cut there somehow. Okay, caller, you're on the air.
How's it going, Charlie?
All right. What's up?
I don't know. I think the drinking age should be lowered to 18. What do you think, buddy?
18, huh?
18. Fred, you're with me, aren't you? You're 18, aren't you?
No, I'm not. I'm not with you.
All right.
I'm
Lowered
against
to 18, how about it being raised to
25.
25?
I don't know, Chuck. 18-year-olds, you know, they're pretty much legally adults, so they should be able to drink. If they can go to war and be shy, you know, they should be able to drink a few.
Well, what's killing people got to do with drinking?
Well, if you're old enough to die, don't you think you're old enough to have a beer?
Well,
Fred?
you can die sitting on your front porch with all the gangland shootings and stuff.
Well, I know, but that's another story.
And so you should be able to drink because of that. That's it, Fred.
I was 24 when I went into the service, and I wasn't drinking then.
That's the deal, Fred. Since there's a lot of drive-by shootings and stuff around the country now, wherever the drive-by shootings are the worst, we should let anyone that's 18 or older drink because they're in a war zone. There, I got it figured out now. I know people that are 25, 35, and 45 that can't handle their booze, let alone somebody that hasn't even totally physically grown into their own body yet, and their mind hasn't totally matured. 18, your mind is still half full of mush and hasn't matured yet. And whether you go to war or not, what do you want to have? Booze on the battlefield too? How about some heroin? Maybe we can get some heroin out there on the front line so you can all shoot up heroin so you won't have to think about shooting people. You can be so doped up you won't even know where you're at. Why not? Or why don't we just take sledgehammers out there and hit everyone in the head, Fred?
Yeah.
Make that legal at 18. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yes, Chuck. Brad, how are you doing tonight?
All right.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen your show, and I must admit it's getting better day by day. Chuck, you're a regular comedian tonight. I mean, I've been eating the Snack Welch cookies and drinking the Colt 45s, and I'm sure you like to do that same thing sometimes. I'm writing a poem for you, Chuck. I call it Seasons of Flowers. And it's about cows and bread. And so, what I wanted to say to you tonight, Chuck, is the Republican Party is a growing race. It grows day by day. The flowers in bloom, the washers of parents. Why can't Chuck leave? No, my parents. Yes, Chuck, you have meant a lot to me in my life. And I must admit, you don't cause strife. Without you, Chuck, we all may be saddened, or few of us may be gladdened. Yes, once again I must say, Fred, you are there to stay. You will always be with Chuck, and we may be happy because Fred is here, smiling happy. Oh, Chuck, it's just great you got your show on there yet. And someday you'll have to invite me on there to sing your poem live. Yes, because the Republican Party is great. And the raccoon hats. I still got my credit card ready.
Well, there you go, Fred. So we have that. Okay, Fred, now, you know, there comes a time in everyone's life where we have to face... You got an ink pen there, Fred? Okay, you use your ink pen there? There comes a time in everyone's life, Fred, where we get down to the end of the trail and nobody lives forever. You'll admit that, right? So we're going to, here on national TV, we're going to ask you if you'll sign this consent form here, Fred, for in case of your untimely death, that we'll be able to videotape your funeral and put it on the air here.
Yeah.
So you'll need to sign right here for that, so that we can have permission to do that. And then we can air the funeral right here on the air. Okay, is it okay if we do the wake too? Or not?
I don't know.
Okay, well, we'll do that then. I filmed a film once before for somebody, Fred, and they really enjoyed it because they had a permanent record of that. And so, thanks a lot there, Fred, and we'll, 20 years from now, when that time comes, we'll, whatever kind of video cameras they have at that time, we'll go ahead and do that, and so that we can have a record of it for the old cow report. Of course, I was going to ask for something else there too, Fred, but some people out there might think that's too gruesome. Okay, Roy, have we got any close-up cameras tonight? You know, last week we showed pictures where Fred was down in Argentina meeting with his secret meeting with Frank Sinatra.
I wasn't down in Argentina.
Frank Sinatra and them carving up Las Vegas during World War II, and of course you've seen how big Las Vegas got. And first of all, Fred, while we're looking for that here, can you imagine that, Fred? These are all costumes that you can get at a new store here in town. Costumes out there to wear your colors on Halloween there. Can't tell me this hasn't turned into a religion, Fred. It sure wasn't what the Catholic Church envisioned a couple 1,500 years ago when they invented All Hallows Eve. It wasn't to do that, was it?
No.
Well, that's what it's come down to. It's come down to a religion now, and they're practicing it in the public school systems. It's fine and dandy to have all this witchcraft and stuff all plastered all over the windows and everything in school. But try and bring a Bible into school or put up a cross on the wall or the Ten Commandments or anything like that, and boy, you're going to get run right out of that school system.
Yes.
Okay, Freddie boy. What do we got here now? Research. Fetal marrow effective. Success in treating sickle cell anemia, leukemia, and even AIDS could be greatly improved if bone marrow from fetuses rather than adults is used in transplants, according to research at Georgetown University. So you know where I'm going with this, don't you, Fred? Using the cells from aborted babies for research to supposedly make adults be able to live longer. We're going to harvest our babies and use the parts for other people. Well, that's what they're doing, Fred. There's a particularly gruesome procedure called a partial birth abortion.
Yes.
Where they're up to 8 months, 3 weeks, 6 days, 23 hours, 59 minutes. To some of you out there that can't count, that's almost 9 months. They can do this procedure called a partial birth abortion, where the doctor gets in the mother's womb and flips the baby around so that the feet come out first. They pull the baby out, leaving the head inside, still alive. Take a big long hypodermic needle and they shove it in the back of the baby's head, suck the brains out of the baby, and then they deliver the baby dead and call it an abortion. Well, why would they do that? Well, they're taking those brain cells and they're experimenting with them. And I'm telling you, the doctors that are doing that, they would be on the front row at any Adolf Hitler concert in Germany during World War II. They would be at the front row applauding. All right. Now, Fred, can you tell us who's in this picture?
I can tell you some of them.
Well, offhand, I can see Frank Martin and Dean
No.
Jack Benny. Wait a minute, the camera's got this up here. I have to look in there. Can you see it there? Right there. Okay, there's Frank Martin.
No,
Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin.
That's not Frank Sinatra,
Joey Bishop.
Dean Martin, and Joey Bishop. It is not.
Lucky Luciano.
That's not.
Members of the Gambino family out of New York.
No way.
Now, was this the first casino you guys opened back in the early 50s?
No way.
Oh, what are you going to do, take the Fifth?
No, I didn't open any casino.
Now, who's that guy up front there? If that ain't...
That fellow is a former state commander of the Catholic War Veterans.
It doesn't look like it to me. It looks like Bobby Vinton.
He is not.
Let's see who else is in there. Well, I don't see...
There's Lorraine Singer.
what's her...
Leona Singer, she was a former historian of the Catholic War Veterans.
Okay, well, that's all fine and dandy, Fred. Well, since nobody wants to call in about that school deal, we'll go on to something else. Because I had all the information here in case we wanted to talk about that more. Here's one here, Fred. Mad Cow Link wins biochemist Nobel Peace Prize. Stanley Prusinger, whose theories on the cause of mad cow disease and a similar brain disorder in humans were once derided by scientific community, Monday won the Nobel Peace Prize in medicine. So there you have it, Fred. All right, now we're getting down to the serious stuff here. Okay. A man in Springfield, Illinois, is blaming his acne medication for a 1986 crime spree. According to a lawsuit filed in the Illinois Supreme Court, the medicine his doctor prescribed for his skin condition caused Ernie Tallarico to go into a Chicago area forest preserve with a stun gun and commit sexual assault against several men. But hey, his skin has cleared up nicely. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, see, I got a question. I heard a rumor, is it possible for Hillary Clinton to run for president and have a couple terms and Bill be the second lady now?
That could very well be what happens because there is some question about whether Al Gore is going to be able to make it with some of this fundraising stuff that's coming out against him. He could, as you remember back in the Nixon days, Nixon's vice president went down the tubes first before he did. Spiro Agnew, I think he was from Maryland.
I'm just wondering maybe if Gore hasn't been set up.
Well, Hillary's out campaigning around the world right now, and she's not doing it just because she's the first lady, and she's doing it because she wants to get some foreign policy experience under her belt so that when she does campaign, she can say, well, not only do I know everything about domestic policy, but I also know everything about foreign policy. I've been all around the world in the last 8 years. And so that's exactly what she's doing. She's going around the world and she's campaigning. And it's her favorable ratings are going up into the 60s now. So even with Whitewater and all that kind of wearing away from our memories now, she's riding a crest of being very popular. You could very well see her running in the 2000 elections. Even if Al Gore doesn't get booted out of there, she could run against Al. Because she's not any spring chicken, she's counting the days too. She's in her early 50s now. She's going to have to start making her move, just like a lot of the other baby boomer types that are in positions of authority. They're starting to make their move now. It's getting to be now or never, like the Dan Quayles and the Bill Clintons and the George Bush Juniors and the Hillary Clintons. These people have to make their move sooner or later here, and they're considering it sooner. We could very well see Hillary Clinton against George Bush Jr.
So what would you actually call Bill then? Would it be the second lady or the second man?
He would be considered the first husband, I guess.
The first
man.
Oh.
First man, but
I suppose that would keep him away from legal battles then too.
Well, of course, they'd keep him cloistered in the White House for possibly another 8 years. By then, he's going to be almost 60, if not 60. He's in his early 50s now, so he could be into his early 60s. As long as they can keep propping up Janet Reno and keep giving her the hypos and keeping her alive. She's got some kind of disease too that's going to she'll end up being in a wheelchair. They got to keep her out front. I call her the lady in red. She's the one that gave the order to gas the people down there in Waco, Texas for 6 to 8 hours. Those little kids, there was no way they could put on gas masks because there's no gas mask made for infants. So when they turned on the gas for 6 hours before they burned those buildings down, they knew exactly what they were doing. They were killing the evidence. Not only did they burn the buildings down, but then they got in there with bulldozers and bulldozed it. So I don't put anything past that administration, up to and including murder. And that's why they have Janet Reno out front. She's kind of a blocker out front there. They've got to keep her propped up and out front. Because if they lose her, the whole house of cards will come tumbling down. She's the one that's blocking all the investigations. She's the one that's keeping the FBI in the dark. She's the one that's keeping her own justice lawyers in the dark. But after all, she hired every one of them. A couple weeks after the Clintons took office, they fired every Republican attorney general in the country and replaced them with new people. And then not only that, the White House called in IRS and FBI files on a lot of prominent Republicans, and they've been blackmailing them for several years. And whatever happened to the stink on that? It's over 1,000 files of prominent Republicans they got a hold of and dug into their personal records and built a database on it. I'm sure some of them Republicans are being blackmailed. So what do you think? You think that their dictatorship is going to end in the year 2000, or you think it's going to continue?
I think it's probably going to continue. I think the people are going to vote in Hillary.
Well, you know, the other day I figured she was just leave. I was thinking to myself, is she just traveling the country, traveling the world to stay out of the United States in case there's an indictment? And then it dawned on me, no, she's traveling around the world getting some foreign policy experience because she's going to run for office, whether it's United States Senate or President.
One other note. Is there any way you can convince Eau Claire County to show us how they can start saving some money rather than spending it?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I noticed on the front page of the Leader Telegram, and I think I brought that article down, as you know, the county board got rid of 2 money drainers. One of them was called the Center of Care, and the other one was called the landfill. And so what do they come back with to us on October 16th? County tax rate may rise. Budget plan increases spending by 2%. Now they lopped off those 2 programs. They're supposedly saving us all these millions of dollars. Why are they raising the taxes and saying that we're going to have to pay more now after getting rid of 2 money losers that drained the budget year after year?
That's a good question, and plus the tax base is growing a lot with the activity in Eau Claire. And I would think there's got to be some savings coming in the roll here somewhere.
Besides that, they just reassessed all the houses in Eau Claire and jacked up the value on all them so that they get more taxes. But it says here they're going to have a $68.6 million budget for 1 year. You know, if you want to get an idea of what socialism looks like and when it's controlled by governments, go to the old farmer store building and walk through there. Now it's getting filled up with private enterprise, but that pretty much that whole upper floor there, that big old white building downtown, was controlled by the Health and Human Services. And you can see office after office, all these little cubbyhole offices where they plied their socialist trades and kept people on the welfare plantation and in welfare slavery year after year because they held the paycheck. They held the money, and they held those people's lives in their hands through the giving of money out every month and controlling the food stamp and all that stuff there and all the welfare stuff that goes along with that and controlling all these people's lives. I know they're still in business, but if you want to get an idea of how big the welfare plantation, how much, there's 2 sides to it. There's a side that's collecting the welfare, and then there's the side that caters to it and takes care of all those people on the welfare. Now, in Wisconsin, we supposedly reduced that load by 50%, but I don't see where they've reduced this overhead of social workers and hangers-on and people that are living off the misery of the people on welfare and getting big fat government checks. It's kind of like 2 sets of welfare. You got the people that are needy over here, and then you got the bloodsuckers over here that are making money off the needy over here. So you got this welfare, then you got this welfare. Now we're starting to eliminate 50% of this. Let's start getting rid of 50% of these bloodsuckers over here because they're still blood-sucking the money because the state still has to pay for them. So part of that's going into this $68.6 million budget.
Yeah, we got to cut that budget. I'd like to go in there and cut that down to about 58.
That's right. That's why I say they should, why not cut budgets? Why not start from zero and make them prove that they need 68 million instead of starting with, well, we gave them 10 million last year for our welfare program. We have to give them an increase. We got to give them at least 10% increase, so we better give them 11 million this year. I say baloney, we'll start at zero and you prove that you need 11 million. Doesn't that sound fair?
Yeah, I think we need some citizens overlooking some of this stuff.
Yeah, well, these school board or these county board members are supposed to be the citizens that we elect and send them up there to carve out this budget, but
I think it's too complex for them, though. They can't keep track of it.
well, I know they can't. There's something rotten in Denmark here because it's 67.08 million in 97, and they're jumping it up to 68.58 million in 98. That's about a 2.3% increase. But they cut back on two major programs that was draining part of the budget. So you'd think there'd be a savings there. There's not. The tax levy's going up almost 12%.
Yeah.
Something's wrong.
We can't afford more taxes. We just cannot afford it. We got to learn how to tighten the belt.
Well, I know. They've been upping the taxes for years and years around here, and then somebody like Hanson squalls and balls and slings snot because he didn't get his 40 million. Well, where do we think he's going to get it? The taxes are too high already. We don't want to pile any more on. Start cutting, start consolidating, start getting rid of some of those people that are making 50, 70, 80,000 up in the administration and that are doing nothing but arguing with each other on who's going to go on vacation and play golf next week, or who's going to chase the secretary around the office when nobody's looking. Cut out that fat and either put them to work teaching in the school system, shut down that administration office and say either you go back to teaching or hit the road, Jack, you're done.
Yeah, that's
On Hanson's salary, we could probably hire 4 capable teachers just for him sitting up there in his mahogany office.
Well, I think they got to get down to the basics too. There's only certain elements you need to know how to learn, and if you're learning them, that's more important than the environment you're sitting in.
That's right. Back in the old days, things were so rough we couldn't even afford shoes. We had to walk to school on our knees. All right. Well, Freddie boy, what do you got there? You got 12
seconds. On the
seconds.
other front, Paulo Jones lawyers have prepared dozens of questions for the president with special attention to his private parts, the distinguishing characteristics of which are now the subject of detailed daily stories on the front page of the conservative Washington Times.
That's amazing how they can do those things, Fred. All right, here's one. All right, in Wichita, Kansas, a man accidentally shot himself and his companion because he was nervous about a police car nearby. I guess the trigger locks aren't just for kids anymore. Here's one, Fred. Burglars in a Chicago suburb broke a window, entered a home, and cooked frozen dinners in the microwave before leaving. Here's a good one. A police officer in Roseville, California, was minding his own business when a man leaned out the window of a passing car and yelled obscenities at him. Curious, he followed and eventually pulled the vehicle over. Inside, he found 2 men and a sizable amount of illegal narcotics. Now remember, kids, when it comes to drugs, just say no. Okay, you're the final call of the evening. Go ahead.
Yeah, Chuck, I was just wondering, by wearing that foursome around your neck, does that mean you were found on a Russian dump or what?
Twin I-beam, what?
Found on Russian dump?
Found a Russian dump.
Yeah, that stands for Ford found on Russian dump.
Oh, yeah. That could very well be. Okay, Fred, in search of the perfect crime, thieves in Warwick, Rhode Island made off with thousands of dollars after taping a note to the night depository at Fleet Bank. The note said that the regular night deposit box was broken and directed customers to put their deposits into another box the criminals had placed near the automatic teller machine. And several people bought into that and put their money in that box instead of the regular one. And finally, in Sydney, Australia, transport officials apologized for keeping rush hour trains running over the body of a woman who had committed suicide by throwing herself on the tracks. State Rail Chief Executive David Hill said, "I think it would have shown greater sensitivity had the trains been stopped." Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you once again for tuning into the Old Cow Report. And as usual, it's adios, amigos and amiguettes. We'll see you again right here next time. So don't forget to tune in, and thanks for watching.
Arrivederci.
Yeah, this is the Common Man. Punky Man's birthday would be today. I would like to see a show with races at Eau Claire Speedway, even old film footage from the old one, which could lead into the races on the new Eau Claire track that should have been built years ago. Why it isn't is beyond me, especially since Red Cedar might fold up very soon. Now, that's all I got to say about that as far as offering new shows. As far as ones on the air currently, well, I'd have to make a list of what I like and what I don't like, and maybe if I get a chance to, I'll send it in to you. Thank you.
Message 5:11:56 p.m. Sunday, August 24.
I'm really happy that you played Peter Phippen because I think he's a very great instrumentalist. I think you should keep it up. Thank you a lot.
Message 2:1:43 p.m. Tuesday, August 26.
Hi, I think that public access community television should have Craig Barr on every night because he's so cool. My name's Jessica. Thank you.
Message 4:25 p.m. Tuesday, August 26.
At the top of my note, which I show on the bottom, easy access, and your telephone number 839-6261. But my heading is Model 2 Clinic. And then Channel 11 cable 839-5067. And then service and training. And the next line, 12 big top horns. Big top something. I don't understand. Please call back and explain.
Message 5:18 a.m. Wednesday, August 27.
My comment is for the program which is being shown right now with the council president and the assistant for the university and their Pam, I guess her name is, regarding the reconstruction of Chippewa Street and First Avenue to Second Avenue. I lived on Chippewa Street and First Avenue on the intersection for many years, and now our house has been bought by FEMA. It will be destroyed because of its location in the floodplain. First of all, I don't understand how they can build a residence hall in the same area. And second of all, if you plan to build an underpass, are you planning to also issue water wings and scuba gear to the people using it? Thank you.
6:47 p.m. Thursday, August 20.
Hi, I really like Craig Barr. Write songs for you. He's the best. So if you could play him more often, I'd be really happy. And if you could give me his phone number because I really want him to write a song for me. Thanks.
Message 11:7:35 p.m. Monday, September 1.
I don't think you guys should be on TV because you guys really aren't all that good and stuff, so bye.
Message 12:7:37 p.m. Monday, September 1.
Do you guys get paid?
Message 13:7:39 p.m. Monday, September 1.
Yeah, I'm watching this Craig Barr, and I was wondering if he actually gets paid for this. And, yep, bye.
Message 14:7:44 p.m. Monday, September 1.
I am watching the Craig Barr show. It is the worst thing I've ever seen on public television. Please take it off.
Message 15:7:45 p.m. Monday, September 1.
You should have more shows dealing with opinions and call-in talk shows. Thank you very much.
Message 12:3:16 p.m. Sunday, September 14.
I think you should have more kids shows on Cable 11. Okay, thank you.
Message 13:3:28 p.m. Sunday, September 14.
I was wondering what they're going to do with that school that they built in Brackett, and it's sitting there now.
Message 7:11 p.m. Monday, September 29.
Yeah, this is Nate Price. I was just wondering how much a cow costs right now on the market. If you guys could let us know, I mean,